Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. I'm Fatin Soleha and my other group members are Aisha Naswaha, Nick Alisha and Nagis Aris. And we chose the topic Implications of Language Shift in Asia. Basically, language shift refers to the observations that people frequently switch their daily speech away from the dominant or regular use of one language to the increase of a different language. And typically, such configurations leads to the occurrence of language shift and language loss, may even lead to the full disappearance of language, which what we call as language deaf. And language shift often occurs with a member of minority groups that results in speakers using less and less of their ancestral or what they call as heritage language. And for an example, the Seletar language, which is a group of indigenous people in Peninsular Malaysia, is facing language endangerment because the community themselves continuously shift to the Malay language. This is what reported by Khatijah Siddiq in Berita Harian. And therefore, we will look into the implications of language shift in Asia, specifically the indigenous people in Malaysia.
The first implication that happens due to the language shift among Aboriginal language in Malaysia is the tendency of the ethnic group in losing their identity. In Malaysia, Malay language is recognized as a national and official language and is used as the standardized language in many areas such as education, in official matters, and many more. However, due to this language shift, many minority languages and even cultures are sacrificed. This process of language shift among the indigenous language could eventually affect the identity of the ethnic group and the individual itself. Fishman, 1977, in his study also mentioned his view on the language and ethnicity link, where language is considered learned behavior for expressing ethnic group membership. When one tends to abandon their own native language, it also means that they are slowly losing their culture and identity. This is because when people speak a common language, they will tend to acquire a feeling of unity and a common identity among the ethnic group. However, as the indigenous group tends to language shift to the standardized Malay without passing their native language down to the future generation, the language and culture of an indigenous group will eventually die. In fact, in an interview done towards this indigenous group who are starting to shift their language, many of them responded by saying that they have pride in their language but do not seem to find any reason why they should learn it and the need to pass it down to the future generation. Therefore, maintaining one language is very important in order to maintain one identity and culture.
Now, I'll be elaborating about another implication of language shift has on Asian society specifically, which is the establishment of language attitudes and prestige. As we all know, language is a vital part of a community's social system as it is used widely for interaction within the group. According to Churchill, if a language is beneficial to the people in the economic, social, and political aspects, it will be considered as prestigious and respected than others. Hence why it can be observed that there is a massive shift of the indigenous people in Malaysia speaking in Malay language. For instance, a study by Rani and Rizwan on the Orang Mirit of Sarawak observed that there is a gradual increase of speakers of Malay language in their community. Due to the group's lack in the economic aspect, speaking in their local language seems backwards and not trendy. Other than being advantageous, for a language to be considered as distinguished, a community's attitude toward it must be taken into account. This can be seen in the same study which found that the younger generation of the community are prone to use the Malay language when communicating. This is because they are influenced by the surroundings, biased perception, and attitudes which consider speaking Malay is boring, while their ancestral language is perceived as primitive language. It's quite saddening to see the youth of the community discouraged from speaking their heritage language due to external pressure. More needs to be aware that these perceptions, which may seem harmless to some, have a significant impact on the minority groups as the lack of speakers could eventually lead to language loss and even language death.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Naki and I'm going to discuss on the aspect of cultural diversity. Language is closely related to culture. Some might even argue that if we lose language, we also lose the culture that is woven into it. Sapiro suggested that different culture or different language offers different perspectives to life. These different outlooks are what gives birth to unique customs such as Pesta Kaamatan. Pesta Kaamatan is so widely celebrated in Malaysia that it became a public holiday. The use of Khalazan language is what makes this tradition unique and meaningful. Therefore, if we lose this language, then we would also deteriorate the cultural value that is embedded in this custom. This would result in Malaysia losing one of its most popular heritage, which contributes to the richness of culture in the country.
There are several possible solutions that can be taken into action to revive the endangered language. First, to account the vocabulary into books, which is to create a dictionary of the language. For example, there is one Kamus Bahasa Dunia, which was published in 2014. And secondly, is the community themselves should speak in their language with their children small, because the language lives and dies with the people. If the community did not take the initiative to maintain the language, who else will? As mentioned in Surah Ar-Ra'd, verse 11, "Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim." Indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So I guess that's it from all of us. Thank you, and I hope this sharing is beneficial to all of us.